everybody. This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable platform where you can get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is someone I hold very close to my heart, the one and only Mr. Brandon Baptiste, who is the Assistant Director, Training and Program Development at New York Center for Interpersonal Development. Mr. Baptiste,
Yes.
first and foremost, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you on, and it's an honor to not to say Brandon Baptiste, but to say that long title that comes with your name.
I appreciate that, Paul. I appreciate that. It is my honor to be here, honestly. It's my pleasure being able to catch up and yeah, talk about things.
Come on. And full disclosure, all right. I want to let my people know right now, listening on this right here, letting you know that I know Brandon Baptiste from way back. We went to school together, so it's been an honor to watch him on the field and off the field in the work that he's done. And trust when I say the work that he does currently right now in the community is exactly what he was doing back at the university time that we were together. So Brandon, without any further ado, I want to kind of dive into our first question. And the first question I want to ask you is just really letting our listeners know what is your cultural background and what is where did you grow up?
Yeah. My cultural background, my both my parents are Haitian. They came over from Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
And I was raised in New Hampshire. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
No, wait, hold up. New Hampshire. Let's stop. Hold up. Let's stop right there. A
Uh-huh.
lot of I think that if there was like a flight map for us immigrants that are flying in, right? When we're coming into the States, we got New York, we got Canada,
Uh-huh.
we got Florida, but I don't think New Hampshire's on the map.
You'd be absolutely correct. If you looked, it's just me. It was just us. It was-
So, was there a reason to go to New Hampshire?
yeah, so my parents, they had emigrated into Boston, into Massachusetts, right? So
Okay,
um
that's a destination. Okay, I got
yeah,
you.
that was the original
Hit
destination.
they
They
hit
came,
they hit the check mark. Okay,
they hit the
good.
check mark, right? Exactly. And I have, along those check marks, I got family all over them, right? So I got family in Florida, I got family in Canada, I got family in New York, I got family everywhere, right?
Hmm.
Um, but that was where
Big
my
family.
immediate, yeah, we have big family. My brother, my dad has many siblings. My mother has many siblings. So lots of cousins. Family reunions get wild. It's a good time. When my parents decided to move up to New Hampshire, I was less than a year old.
Okay.
Um, from my understanding, the reasoning was the opportunity of having a house that was affordable, got them out of the apartments, and provided a space for my brother and I to grow up with like a yard and whatnot. Yeah, so it was
Mm-hmm.
affordable. They both worked in Massachusetts, in Boston, but they commuted in order to make it work, right? And so
So you're telling me your parents were commuting from New Hampshire to Massachusetts?
yes, yes, it was about hour and a half, depending on where they were going. But yeah, that was the big sacrifice that our
Mm-hmm.
our parents did in order to make sure that we had what they wanted us to have, what they're striving us for to have.
And not to sell it short. I mean, obviously, nowadays people are commuting into various different cities. They're living on the outskirts. But I think something about the immigrants' background, like the first or second generation immigrants that are traveling into like a city that obviously they understood Boston, right, in that area, but
Mhm.
going into New Hampshire, like transportation already is one of those things you got to kind of like navigate through. So not being from the area, not being from the states, let alone right? And trying to navigate that. That just shows the grit that mom and dad had in order, and then also taking that hour and a half, 2 hour trip back, and then getting ready to provide for you and your brother. So kudos to mom and dad during that time period.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I'm talking they were, you know, um, waking up 4 a.m. to get out of there, um,
jeez. Well,
going
shout
going
out
to
to that. Could
right
you
going.
I was gonna say at that point, could you share a little bit more about like that immigrant background? Like what was some of like the upbringings, the values from your culture of being Haitian, that kind of shape you and the person you are today when it comes to serving young youth?
Yeah. I mean, the culture. I mean, Haitian culture. It's it's heavy in helping and sacrifice. And what I've seen, um, this oh, it's it's what can I do for you, right? How can I
Mm-hmm.
help you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How can I um figure out what what it is that you need, right? And I took that, I grew up with that, and really focused it into the work that I do, right?
Okay.
I've taken all those conversations with my parents about why I was upset about something, right? And I would take that and really aim it into whatever situation I was in growing up. So if I was in an argument at school, it became, well, why are we in this argument? What's going on? What can I do to understand you better?
I
Right?
see. I see. I
If
see.
and then if I was seeing something happen, I was always pretty good at being neutral, at trying to see both people's experience or how
Perspective
they,
on, yeah.
yeah, perspective. I That was always where I was trying to go. Nobody was ever wrong in my mind. It was always somebody's not communicating what they actually feel, or they don't agree, right? And if they don't agree, that's fine. Nobody's necessarily wrong.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're so right about the Haitian culture. And I feel like it's a Caribbean thing as well. But there's been a
Mhm.
lot of thought leaders that have come on here that are from Haitian descent, and they always talk about community. They always talk about resilience, but they also talk about community and how like the Haitian culture is so like loving and welcoming. So I could only imagine your house was probably like that when your friends came over because you're probably the only Haitians on the block.
Yeah, so my house is interesting. My big joke was I tell my friends that, when you walk into the house, this is now going to be a Haitian house. Like this is a Haitian culture. You're crossing the threshold into Haiti upon
Let's go.
entering our home, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because and it was something my friends never, like I said, we're like the only Haitians in the area. So when my friends came over, I'm talking, this is my friend Bobby. He's of Irish descent. He's coming in the house. He's never, like he's never
Yeah,
experienced
yeah, yeah.
this.
The
So
Zouk music playing in the background. You probably
yeah,
family
yeah,
eating
yeah.
some banan.
Exactly, exactly. Explain to them what the food that we eat, the music that we're listening to, the language that we speak, or
Yes,
that
like Creole.
yeah, the language that they would hear upon entering the home. It was
Yeah,
not
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
be because I also didn't want raised eyebrows. I didn't want my friends coming over and being like, "What's going on?" I would
Like,
give
what
them the
is
heads up
this?
ahead of time, right?
I respect
Um,
that. I respect that.
yeah,
Hey guys, disclosure real quick. When you walk inside, you're in Haiti, okay?
yeah,
This is
exactly.
not Fulton Street. This is actually Haiti, right here, little
Yeah.
Haiti, once you walk inside. And you know what? It's something also about the Caribbean culture. I feel like a lot of the immigrant culture, when they migrate and come here to the States, that's one of the things they want to hold on to is the culture, right? So
Mhm.
whether you walk inside the house and you see grandma in the kitchen cooking that you would have saw when you were back in Haiti or any other place, right? Also the flags on the wall, and sometimes the fruits that your uncle probably brought on a flight that he should have never brought on. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like,
exactly, exactly. I was always the kid who was like, come look at the food that we eat. Like, come see what it is that like pickles, for example. I was giving my friends the spiciest bit of it just to see how
mm,
they react because I'm like, this isn't our food. This is what we eat. So if you're coming over, this is what you're going to be eating. And
you know
let's
what? And then, now that I think about it, that's you just got me thinking, Baptiste. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot more about what you do in your job, but I want to let you know what you were doing right there was helping in regards to conflict. I think that a lot of conflict, like you said, comes from people just not knowing,
yeah,
right?
it's just the pure
You
ignorance.
already said, hey, look, I'm going to be very transparent with you. This is my culture. This is what we eat. This is the music we listen to. So if anyone had any discrepancies or thoughts and said, well, this doesn't seem right or this is this, you were already putting it on the table in order to stop conflict. People
Hmm.
leaving out of the house and going to speak about you guys at school, right?
Yeah,
Because you got to go to school the next day, right? Right. But if you
absolutely.
tell people, hey, look, before you come to my house, Bobby over here, look, just so you know, you're coming into Little Haiti and walking them through
Yeah.
what the culture really means to you, to your family, and potentially to this your new friend. I think it's a great way of kind of like underlining the work that you do currently today.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. And it's funny. One of the those other things that you mentioned that I want to say is the thing. One of the first things that I would always tell my friends when they came over was when we walk inside, the first thing you need to do is say hello to my parents. That's what you need to do when you walk, because I learned very young, if those kids came over and they didn't say hi,
Ow.
my parent, it was gonna be a problem. There was gonna be a problem. So I
Wow.
started learning, like, if you come over, make sure you say hi to my parents. And I was also the kid who would go over to other people's house, and this might have saved me a few times. When I go to my friend's house, I'd seek out their parents and say hello.
Mm.
When you grow
Mm.
up in an area and you're the only black kid, I'm the only black kid at the party. If I show up and something goes missing, who are they looking for? So I would make sure I said hello, I said hi, and that would make it a softer blow for me, right?
Hmm.
Those parents are now like, oh, Brandon's good, Brandon's cool, Brandon's great. Like those parents
Yeah.
now love me because I would always seek them out, and that way, when something did happen, something broke, I didn't have to worry about somebody accusing me, and that was something I brought from my culture into just other people's houses, and
No,
unbeknownst to them.
smart move, smart move. I mean, it's a, or is it a really, really smart move by Mr. Brandon Baptiste? Because you were the one breaking stuff, and you just wanted to make sure you was in the good. We done caught
No,
him. We got him. This the one right here. This the one right here.
was it?
You
What is
know,
it?
let it out the bag, Brandon. Let it out the bag.
What
Just
what is it?
out of curiosity, the immigrant background obviously has shaped a lot of the things, uh your journey, right? A lot of that grit, seeing mom and dad doing their thing, and being like, okay, what, I'm taking this in. But before you got to where you are currently today, when you were growing up, like what was the thought process, like what did you want to be?
Oh man. You know,
I mean, the Haitian culture, I could only imagine you only had a few selections.
yeah, I mean, I can tell you what they wanted me to be, and I can tell you what I wanted to be, right?
Oh, okay. Let's
Uh,
let's go with let's go with what they wanted you to be. Let's make sure we can match
um,
this to the other thought leaders.
yeah, there's doctor, there's
Okay,
lawyer,
check.
there's architect, there's all those educational base, get those degrees, get those masters, go and make money, be secure, right? Those are those things that were always pressed upon, right? Everybody always said, Brennan, you can make a great lawyer. And I couldn't even tell you if that was a compliment or not because I just like to argue. That was my
Mhm.
thing when I was a kid. I like to argue with everybody, and so everyone was like, "Oh, Brandon would make a great lawyer," and that's where they tried to push me in that direction. Right? Go to school, get 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 yourself good in life. Right? We don't want you to struggle, and that's the appropriate response of a parent. Right? You
Yeah.
don't want your child to struggle in life, so you want them to get set up. Right? Now, on the other hand, me as a kid, I wanted to be an entertainer. I wanted to go out there, dance, sing, act, do all those things that are risky in the eyes of
Yeah,
immigrant parents.
you was left field.
Oh yeah, I was the wild card. They were like, "What is he
Yeah.
doing? This is not what we want for him, right?" Um, and it took a while for me to figure out where I was going to land, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, I was a kid. I played sports. Um, I wasn't competitive, but I was athletic, but I wasn't competitive. Um, I was in drama. I did musicals. I did plays. And it was something I loved to do. But was it really something that I was going to end up doing? Right.
True,
It was
true,
one of
true.
those things
There,
where,
that's always the hard truth right there. We got like, all right, this is what I got to do right there.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, those were that was what I wanted to do versus what was expected of me and how I ended up here. I mean, there was a lot behind that. There's
Hmm. And we're gonna dive into that. We're gonna dive into that, Mr. Brandon. You know, something about you, Brandon, and I know that in our before the call, before we obviously hopped on our podcast today, you mentioned something that really stuck with me, resonated with me, was when you said, um, that you might know that you're good at something,
Mhm.
but are you good at the process to get to something?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah.
And that was like something that caught me off guard. I was like, wait, hold up. That's actually very that's like a one liner that honestly could change your life, because a lot of individuals could say, look, I could be an entertainer, I could be in the entertainment business, I could see myself dancing with Justin Timberlake and being on tour with him, right? But are you good at the process to get to there is the next question. So that, I assume that was probably something where you probably were like, I could be a lawyer, I like to argue,
Yeah.
but am I going to be good at the process
Yeah, absolutely. It
to
was
get
one of those things where I could definitely see myself, in a suit, going to the courtroom, being a lawyer. I like to argue. I like the technicalities of law. But school, law school, the late nights studying, that process that you need to be dedicated to in order to get there, is that something I was capable of? And that was
there?
one of those things where I started to realize that might not be for me, because I realized the process to get there wasn't something that I was capable of at that time.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and and I think that's really what shaped where I ended up kind of going.
Hmm. Hmm. And before you even got to that place, I'm assuming that there was some hardships along the way, and there's a process, right? And in someone's process, they always try to find ways to get through, right? And
Mhm.
one of the biggest ones would probably be a role model. Were there any role models along this journey for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My brother was and is my biggest role model. Um, he he was the one who really got me to understand that process aspect of things. Um, as a kid, like I said, learning what I was capable of in terms of the process, and learning how my own shortfalls are kind of a part of that, are I can attribute to conversations I've had with my brother, where because he was, star quarterback of the town. Everybody knew my brother. He was um, popular. He was well liked, um, and I wanted to be that. Right. I grew up. I was athletic. I played basketball. I played football, and I started to realize just, and he doesn't even realize this himself, that he was the one who made me kind of figure this all out. But through those
Mm-hmm.
conversations, I realized what I was lacking was that competitive drive. He was very competitive. He wanted to win. He went out there. His goal was to win, right? When I played sports, my goal wasn't necessarily to win. It was to have fun. And that's when I started to realize, just because I have the talent, or just because I have the capability, doesn't necessarily mean the process is something that I'm capable of. Because the process of being competitive, going out there and winning, was not something I was interested in. The grueling 3 day train 3 day practices was not something that I was
Mm-hmm.
interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And once I realized all that, that's when I took a step away from that and put my energy towards things that I would be interested in. And
I
like I
see.
said prior, when it came to entertainment, right? The sacrifice, the process to get to the level in which in my head, I was like, that's what I want to be. The process to get there was not something that I felt like was for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I started to pivot and start to realize, all right, well, when I go to college, what am I going to study? What am I going to do? What am I going to try to do with my life, right? Um, and that's how I ended up starting to find myself a little bit in that sense.
Mm-hmm. I think I admire you for talking about your brother right now. A lot of times, individuals, when it comes down to role models, one of the first role models that people mention and talk about is like their parents, right?
Mhm.
Because obviously they were, or their grandparents, because of the level of providing, right? But as siblings, we argue with our brothers and our sisters. It's like that sibling dispute, that conflict, right?
And that happens for
Yeah.
sure. But
But to find the good in it, and
Mhm.
being like, you know what, hands down, you know, I I'm here, and my brother or my sister has already done it already or has gone through this. So I can learn from them. But
Yeah.
then also having your siblings say, I have gone through this and I want to go back and kind of help my brother or my sister navigate through these same exact struggles. Then it goes
Mhm.
both ways. So it's an honor to hear that that was a situation, because at times, like I said, it gets too competitive with siblings at times, and no one wants to help anybody out. You're on every man for themselves, in a
Mhm.
sense. So to have you speak highly of him, kudos to your brother. I know he'll be very honored to hear those words from you, and
I'm
knowing
sure.
that it was it was a very monumental moment to help you in your career and where you are today. And that is going to bring me to my next question. Like this long title you got,
Yeah.
Baptiste. I knew you just as Bap. And if I was lucky enough, I was like Brandon Baptiste. If I was calling you out in a classroom environment or something along those lines, or at a meeting. But this long title, talk to us a little bit more about what this title really holds and what exactly do you do?
Yeah. So, assistant director of training and program development. What does that mean, right? What I've been doing is helping to develop and um, put out these peer mediation trainings across the city. So all five boroughs, we go through and we do two trainings a week at this point. Actually, probably around two to three, maybe even four, depending on the week, where we are training students in how to be peer mediators. So for those who don't know what a peer mediator is this a student in a school who is capable, with the tools that we provide, to help students resolve their conflicts, right? So in schools, we can all understand that schools have a lot of conflicts. Students get into conflicts with each other, for reasons inside of school and outside of school. They boil over and they end up having some sort of conflict happen in school, right? So our goal is to provide students with the tools that they need in order to address those conflicts in a productive manner, and find resolutions through those, helping the students who are in the conflict find resolutions.
Mm-hmm. And if you could kind of navigate a little bit of more of the conflict stuff, how do conflicts again? You had mentioned a few reasons why conflicts typically arise. Like what were those again?
Yeah, conflicts. One of the main reasons why conflicts arise is due to unmet needs, right? Two people will have a need that an innate need that isn't being met, and we help them. The peer mediators help them figure out what that need is and address that need, right? Miscommunication is a huge one. That's almost in every single conflict, is somebody miscommunicated in some sort of way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or there's a misunderstanding in some sort of way. So we help them sort that out and then find the actual conflict that's underneath whatever it is that they're arguing about.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, when people are in conflict, they are so preoccupied with being in conflict that they forget what is actually making the conflict happen, what's actually the ignition of that conflict. And so, we help them figure that out. We help them settle down those reactions and get into a more collaborative headspace where they're able
It's nice,
to
nice.
actually have a conversation.
It's I think the work that you do is so beneficial, especially in the world of today that we live in, right? As we can see, conflicts really have gotten worse over the years, where people have acted out even in current day, broad daylight,
Mhm.
acting out on their disputes. I feel like you got to meet the kids where they're at, right? Obviously, math and science is important, but life skills is sometimes way more important. Being able to resolve conflicts and being able to voice your opinion and have your own thoughts without pushing negative notations on the next person. I feel like that's a beautiful thing to do, because while they're doing it at a young age, they might not see the true benefit to it, because to them it's like conflict. They just want to go for it. But as you get to an adult level, you might when you're in a corporate environment, right, or you own your own business, you have to know how to deal with conflict, right? Whether it be from the consumer, from your employees, from your supervisor. So you're already training them and giving some life skills to help them when that time does come. So kudos to you. You know, this is where like that mentorship, that big brother in you is already activating from stuff that you saw back home and
Mhm.
now in the work that you do. So kudos to you on that, man. It's a beautiful. It's made you been a strong leader. Like, was there like a pivotal moment during this whole time, like when you were starting off, that you were like, "This is it. I'm going to be doing this."
Yeah, I think it was one of those moments where I realized the work that I initially was doing um, when I graduated college wasn't fulfilling. It didn't it didn't leave behind. It was not a job that was going to leave behind a legacy that I wanted to leave behind, right?
I see.
When we talk about the sacrifices my parents made to ensure that we had the life that they wanted us to have. Um, at the crux of all that is just one generation working to provide for the next generation. And so what I'm trying to do, what I realized that I wanted to do was leave behind a legacy that people can say, Brandon tried to help the next generation. That was why I was here, to help not just my family, but the family of everybody around me
Yeah.
in
Hmm.
generations to come, right? And so, what kind of work can get that done? And that's what really pulled me away from the work I was doing and got me into the beginnings of the work I do now, because it was an evolution. I evolved into this role.
And before you got the position that you are right now, what were some of the other roles that you played a major role in?
Yeah, so originally I was doing, when I first graduated college, I was doing assets protection work, loss prevention work, and
That was security, right?
that was security, yeah.
Okay,
So
cool.
so security, retail security, essentially, ensuring low theft numbers, internal theft, external theft, things like that. I got out of that really because I started to realize, um, like I said before, I wanted to help people as opposed to apprehend shoplifters. I was more interested in, well, why are you shoplifting? Like that's what
That come on,
those were
come
the
on.
questions I was asking as
Let's
opposed to
stop them
being
before they even do it.
exactly. That's what I was more interested in, and that's when I realized this isn't the work I want to do. I want to get there before and see if there was some sort of thing that could have been done to prevent them from going that direction, right? And so that's when I started working with kids. So I started working in a facility for kids who they lived there, they went to school there, they got the counseling done there, and so I started working in there as just a like a support staff counselor type role, where I was just working with students, not students, the residents. I was working with the residents after school and before they went to bed, right? So I was just hanging out with them, making sure that they were safe, um, and really seeing any conflicts that were arising and making sure that they didn't get to the level that that required bigger attention, right?
I
So
get
just
you.
really keeping them safe throughout the afternoon, right? And then I liked that job because it put me in a position where I wasn't necessarily comfortable, but I grew to become comfortable.
I get
And
you.
through that, I realized that it's really important to get comfortable being uncomfortable because that is where some opportunities lie. So, I took that and I got a job as a case planner. I moved out to New York, got a job as a case planner in foster care, and worked with youth who were either trying to get home or trying to find a life for themselves, right? Did that for a few years, transitioned over into adoptive work. So I was working, looking
Mm,
for helping youth in foster care find adopted families, and hopefully even recruit family members that can step in and adopt them out of foster care as well. So those are the things that I was doing. But if you know anything about foster care, you know that the burnout rate is extremely high. Um,
mm, mm, mm,
the
mm.
the trauma that you work with, you end up pulling up, like vicarious trauma,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
trauma where it's hard to let go at the end of the day. It's hard to,
Taking that stuff home with you as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
because you're thinking about it.
Thinking about it all day. Yeah,
But
uh,
all the jobs that you did have, I could see how it laid the foundation to where you are currently today. It wasn't like you
absolutely.
went from one place, you became a chef, then you became uh, um, uh, a garbage disposed person in man. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
you were like, look, I'm gonna stay in this lane. I might navigate and move through various different places, but I'm staying in this lane. It seemed that you were very like tunnel vision in your movement, and it got you to where you are right now. Because obviously the title shows that if each letter was a hardship that described, I mean, you're saying, let's go. So the longer titles describes longer years,
uh-huh.
and a lot of experience as well too. So you've earned that position, you've earned that right. I
Appreciate
know
that.
sometimes when we get to these positions, we might get a little like worried that we're not the right person for the job, but needless to say, Mr. Baptiste, you definitely are because of the work you have put in over the many, many, many years.
I
Um,
appreciate that. I appreciate that. It is definitely one of those things where getting here, it wasn't something that I initially thought was going to happen. It was not initially something that, um, like I'm not a natural born leader. I've learned how to become a leader through these experiences, um, and through making sure that I choose the path that is going to make me uncomfortable. Because once I become comfortable, it's because I've learned. It's because
mm,
I've taken on that responsibility and I've stepped up to the plate. And I that is really I look at opportunities as, is this something that makes me uncomfortable? And if it is, I'm probably going to take that opportunity because
okay.
I think that is where I grow the fastest, and that is where I learn the fastest, and where I think the leadership that I've learned can actually be used.
I like how you said that. Like, if it's conflict, not conflict, but if a level of vulnerability, you're like, I'm diving in
Yeah,
because and in most situations, the most vulnerable places and times that we're in, we learn the most about ourselves, right? But
yeah,
we have to look at it already as a positive and not a negative. You got to be like, okay, look, I got to be vulnerable, right? I know it's going to be a process, but you know what? I'm actually going to come up on the other side in a good way.
yeah.
Some people are like, oh no, I got to be vulnerable. I got to open up. They start thinking about all the negative things that could possibly come through it, and then it holds them back from actually making that move. And then finally, when they get there, they're like, I should have done this a long time ago.
Exactly,
Should have done it a long
exactly.
time
That,
ago.
that's what it is, and it's one of those in my current position. When I was looking for this kind of work, when mediation kind of stuck out as an option, when I read into it, I was like, you want me to go to schools and talk in front of students about mediation? I'm like, you must be crazy. I can't do that. Like, what are you talking about?
They're
And
not
then
gonna hear me.
in that moment, I said, I'm going to do it because I realized how uncomfortable I was. And I went, no, that's the move to make. That's the job to apply for because it made me so uncomfortable when I read the job posting that I realized I think this is it. This is it. This is what I got to do. And then as I've been doing it, I've been like, I should have done this a long time ago. Because
Yeah, yeah.
it's something I can proudly say I'm good at. It was one of those things where I had to realize I was good at it, and I had to actually step up to the plate and do it.
Mm. And do you feel like your Haitian culture has helped you out in your in your profession?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the the biggest part about mediation, like I said before, is finding those needs. And growing up, talking with my family was a huge part of our culture. Um, whether it was our faith, right? It was if I was going through something, my parents were the first ones to be like, "What's going on? Why are you acting this way? What is it that you need? What is happening?" Right? And being able to, um, I mean, the Haitian culture is always about like, how can I help? Right? How can they're reaching back and saying, how can I help you get what you need out of this? And I took that culture and I bring it to everything I do now. So I go into when I see conflicts happening, when I saw conflicts happening as a kid in our family versus conflicts happening that were not in the family or were not in the culture. I saw the difference in how I would speak with my family versus if I was speaking to like a counselor at school and they were asking questions like what would you like to do or what would you like out of this situation? I could say all the things that I wanted, but they weren't listening. They weren't actually doing anything to address any of it, right? Um, so, but meanwhile, in my family and in the culture, there was some effort into, all right, if this is how you feel, this is what we can do, right? This is how we can address that. And I take that and I move it into what I do today.
And what like leadership qualities do you have that you've built over time, in which you feel like you've strengthened over the many years?
Um, Confidence.
Okay.
Confidence is a big one because it was not, confidence is not something that I had growing up. It was something that I grew into. Um, I it was I was always second guessing myself. I was always trying to fit in. I was not the kid who was comfortable standing out. And then as I grew up and grew older, um, that quality of leadership of standing out was something I learned how to do, and being comfortable standing out
Hmm.
was something that I learned later in life. But it was I think that was the beginning of my current journey is finding my confidence. And because I joke around all the time, I'm like, man, if I was as confident as I am now, back when I was in high school, I would be a completely different individual. But
True that. True that. True that.
so it's one of those things where, but I don't shy away from the fact that that's how I got here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It
Like
came
that's
at the
how,
time when it was supposed to come at.
exactly,
You had to
exactly.
go through a couple of experiences. You had to understand the value of confidence. Sometimes people are given things prematurely, and they don't even know that it's needed. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So I think that you went through some types of experiences in your life that by the time you got to the level of truly being like confidence,
Yeah,
now you can truly appreciate it what it really is true value
yeah,
in a
absolutely.
sense. And I feel like you got to have confidence to do 100 plus mediations.
Yeah,
Like let's talk about that. But I saw that 100 plus mediations. That's a lot of conversations, and we're not talking about just a 10-minute conversation. We're talking about hours and hours. And you're doing this, leading this across New York City schools.
yeah.
You know,
It's the trainings, right?
yeah, the
Those
trainings,
100
yeah,
plus, yeah, mediation trainings. Yeah, I'm doing it across across the last 5 years. I started this position right in the beginning of shutdowns. So
mm,
when the city shut down, that's my first day was literally the first day of shutdowns. I wasn't sure if I was going to keep having a job, but that was it
don't
was
worry, we
a
got some
concern.
trainings going on. Get on that Zoom, Mr. Brandon Baptiste.
Yeah, that was a true concern. I was like, it's my first day and schools aren't happening. So what am I doing? But they kept me on. Bless them for that. And we
The rest is history.
the rest is history.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously that's a lot of trainings right there. I feel like you're leading teams. You're giving like valuable insight that would help other teams as well and organizations in continue seeing their growth. Like what is like you've there's an award. I'm trying to remember now. You've earned the honor.
Excellence in Practice Award.
Yes, yes, that is
Yeah.
correct right there. This award, could you talk to us a little bit more about this recognition? Because I am assuming it came with those 100 plus mediation training hours.
No, and I received this award prior to this position.
Oh, okay.
This award I received when I was working in foster care.
Okay.
When I was working in the city in foster care, um, every year there was an award ceremony for caseworkers, case planners, adoption workers who were excelling at um, portions of their job, of their work. And so I was awarded this award for work that I was doing with a specific case and how I was helping a youth find adoptive family who weren't in New York. So it was they were able to find family that they wanted to be with who didn't live here. And how I managed um, that case. It was how I got the award
Mm-hmm.
for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I know that you got a lot more awards as well too with that. A lot more recognitions and being on this podcast right now, it's an honor to hear the journey and to see it unfold. Again, to all our listeners, like I said, Brandon and I went to school together. So to see him, he was already doing this on a smaller scale, but to us in college it was on a larger scale, right? But
Yeah.
a smaller scale compared to what you're doing right now. So to hear how the journey started off, in New Hampshire and then migrating to like when you got to the University Sacred Heart, and then going into all the various different positions that you've held, and now currently into the position that you are, and you are well groomed and seasoned for the position that you're in. Right. And I can
Appreciate
only
it.
imagine in the many more years to come that when I interview you again, that title is going to be double the size
Uh,
of what I just said.
I can only hope. I can only hope. Or it's just owner. That's hopefully somewhere I'll just
Well,
be the owner
let's I'm
of a
praying
thing.
for that, and I'm also going to keep praying that that title comes with some l'argent.
L'argent.
L'argent, muy l'argent. I'm always working on my Creole. I'm always working on my Creole because a lot
Uh-huh.
of our thought leaders, they always come on, they give me a little insight, and I say, okay, all right, I love it, I love it, I love it. My last question to you, Brandon, and again, it feels like we ain't miss a beat, brother. Like honestly, it feels
Absolutely,
like
yes.
that.
It's like yesterday.
When you think back about it, the next 10 years that you talked about a legacy, right? What do you feel that you're going to do now in this next go around, the next 10 years to leave that legacy to serve your community?
I'm gonna break it down with one word.
Mm,
Um, growth. And I say growth because I try to live every day learning from the experiences around me and taking that and growing, right? And I'm gonna be as humble as I possibly can be because I'm never gonna be perfect. I'm never gonna know everything. I'm never going to succeed the way I want to succeed if I think I'm done. If I
mm,
ever think I'm done, then I failed. So I think one of the legacies that I want to leave behind is that I don't give up, right? I don't stop taking opportunities. I don't stop learning. And learning comes from way more than just education.
yeah.
Learning learning comes from I learn from the students I work with every day, right? I learn from um, people who I mediate when I do have mediations. I learn from them, right? I take all those and I everything I learn, I'm going to pass on in some sort of way. So just by the way that I deal with conflict, I want my kids to see me deal with conflict in a productive way. I want to see, um, I want to see my legacy is more than just what I've done, but how I've lived, how I've learned, and how I've passed that on myself.
Mm, mm. Well, you're definitely gonna leave a legacy here at Zaka, here on this platform with this podcast and the information that you have shared with us today. Brandon, it has been an honor to hear your journey, see it, but also hear it on a larger scale, and also just kind of rekindle a lot of those thoughts, those stories that we shared with each other back in school, and now again to kind of rehear them again and be like, okay, yeah, this guy never changed, never missed a beat, man. Mr. Brandon Baptiste. Again, congratulations. It's an honor to have had you on our show today.
Thank you very much. The I'm so happy that you reached out and we were able to do this. It was great catching up and being on a platform where we can discuss these kind of things. So I appreciate
Mhm.
that.
And I want to let the listeners know if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Brandon, please check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow us on our social at Zaka Connect and follow our feed Zaka wherever you listen to your podcasts.